Okay, we're going to now turn into our interactive audience um, panel. And again, one of the things just to set the expectation is this is not a typical panel where we're just sitting up listening. These panelists will be asking questions of you and wanting you to engage. So again, don't be shy. This is one of the things that you'll find out about this community is it's a very relaxed group. Um, we all enjoy having interactions with each other and just having fun with it, as well as we have these conversations. So please join in.
They don't really have a choice about not interacting, right?
Yes, because we have our interactor in the back. So I'm going to turn this over to Mark here.
All right. So if I can get the panelists up, we've got microphones up here as well. So we've got some questions that came up ahead of time. We wanted to see we want to talk about the topic of digital resilience, right? We've got a lot of issues with supply chain, and now we're looking at a possible recession or some sort of unstableness in our economy. And so you want to know how to transverse this in a resilient way. And so we've got our three panelists. Let me go back. Jane Arnold, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, guys.
Okay, so for those who don't know me, I am Jane Arnold. I've got close to 35 years experience in manufacturing, most of that being chemical. The last couple of years I was at Stanley Black & Decker. And just to be open here, I'm in the process of transitioning to the dark side, so this will be my last panel for a while. Anyway, I'm happy to meet you all and discuss digital transformation.
Okay, Bob, you wanted to go next?
Sure. Good afternoon. I'm Bob Whitaker. I'm a principal technical expert with Shell in the engineering disciplines of instrumentation, electrical, and process controls. And a little over 37 years with Shell. And I work in the area of technology, primarily across the instrumentation, control, and electrical space. So I'm involved in activities like OPAF, for example, some of our IT/OT programs within Shell, and some of those. Thanks.
Okay, Rajesh. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? My name is Rajesh Singh. I'm part of Train Technologies digital transformation group. I lead the global digital technology globally for all the 39 factories from a little over a year and a half. Before Train, I was at Electrolux company that makes Frigidaire appliances for 17 years in IT and digital transformation. I led the global digital transformation initiative globally for 44 factories. Before that, I was in consulting, implementing ERP MES solutions. And I joined as a member digital DTC team and started liking it, and then became part of leadership team. Then became part of advisory service. So certainly I'm enjoying so far, and I hope I continue to do that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm just looking at the list you guys put together with Peter, since I'm not Peter. In case you guys were confused, I'm not Peter. So your first topic was people and workforce. What kind of things came to mind when you were talking about that topic?
Okay, I'd like to start here. So when I look at the last 10 years or so with digital transformation, Industry 4.0, there was a lot of failures, and I believe that was due to lack of engagement of the workforce. So what I'm passionate about today and what I'm trying to make an impact on is how do we do a true bottoms-up engagement so that we can have sustainable solutions for our factories and really a human-centric, augmented solution. So I'm curious as to what other people have been using, what sort of strategy that they've tried, and what kind of success or failures you're having in this realm.
Anybody want to speak to that? Anybody have any ideas they want to talk or share?
So Brian, we had a hand wave up here in the front,
There you go.
and I'm going to go ahead and call him
I
out
should've-
because I saw it first, so there you go.
And I have long arms, so I can reach across.
I don't know if we're supposed to introduce
Yeah,
ourselves. I'm
please-
not going
please
to.
do.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. My name's Thomas. I'm from Williams Companies. We do natural gas pipeline transmission mainly and some refinement. But we've been, or I guess I have been, taking advantage of a lot of like Lean Six Sigma techniques. Really doing a lot of Gemba walks, getting out and just seeing the people, but also leveraging things I've seen in social media. So I made like a link tree situation where I publish videos and that with like short little snippet videos, 2 minutes, right? While they're flipping through their phone that have a survey at the end that allow them to speak when they want to speak and make it convenient for them, not having to attend a meeting that is at a deliberate time to share their voice, but let their voice come 24/7 whenever they're either passionate about it or see something that they want to talk about. So I've been able to utilize that pretty well. And it gets really good adoption with the end users. They speak a lot. They have a lot to say, it turns out, if you just ask and listen. So that was a strategy that I've been using a lot, is just that like 2-minute video, like a reel on whatever your social media platform of choice is, followed by like a short survey that asks like the same 3 questions every single time. So while they're watching subsequent videos, they actually process those questions in their head and are ready to answer the questions, and they're very predictable. So it's worked really well for me.
We have one more over here.
Hi, so my name is Renato. I'm from iMirim, a startup company that we deal specifically with industries. And when I see like these issues here, I could exchange with you my experience where we take undergraduate students and we train them inside industries for techniques such as advanced control, real-time optimization, and we use a lot of open source software because it's, low cost to us. So this makes feasible to train these undergraduate students and form them to what we believe it will be the future of industries. And also to make it happen, we have a lot of connections with innovation hubs where big clients are connected also. So they are always giving us opportunity to show what we can do. And this is our experience we can share with you here. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, here we go.
Steve Mengel, Buckeye Partners. I work in the IT department, not hardcore IT infrastructure, network, and security, but field operations applications. My responsibility is up at the corporate level, so everything it takes for all the software that it takes for field operations to run. And we've had a number of digital transformation initiatives, although we don't have any one group asking and calling for that. But how we handle just all IT initiatives are around what we call organizational change management, and that the organizational change manager is not an IT person, because if it's IT that's doing it, it will fail because nobody's going to want to do it. So we engage with the business, and we essentially we ask, but essentially force the business to take on that process. We help them, we guide them, we kind of lead them through that whole process, but it's really, it's the business that must drive that for the business themselves. One of our recent failures was with selection of hardware, which we did go through the whole pilot process with field operations and selecting an appropriate device. We're on the oil and gas side, so anything that's used out in field operations has to be Class 1 Div 2, Class 1 Div 2. It could possibly explode. So we picked a device. It was a different form factor from a laptop, a little bit more bulky, a little bit probably cumbersome if you're going to climb a tank or do something along those lines. And what we found is it feels just not using it. I mean, it was adopted by the business chose it, it was carried forward, we spent a lot of money. When we're going through a rollout process, we have stopped and we regrouped. And some new products have come to market that help us, and we're going to be able to take it to the iPad and the iPhone level now and then start to do some pilots in that regard. So that was a failure that we learned, and trying to go after something that will lead to success and the adoption and the use of that pad or the phone for the digital transformation initiative.
Clearly, there was some kind of experience.
Did they want to just give a response to that real quick? They just want to respond.
Okay.
Giggling part, but I think I'll give it to her also.
Heard something that you recognize.
Yeah, so everything you mentioned applies to us. We need class 1 div 2 or even sometimes more hazard rated devices. But what we can't do is go back. You know, I think it's a reality that it's going to add a weight to the form factor. And what we learned talking to the users is that they like the larger form factor, right? But it's heavier. Bigger the device, heavier it gets. But also, if it's a longer job, then they do like to have that, put it out there and use it. You kind of have to deal with that situation to make sure that we don't revert back. We don't generally go away from that kind of put a case or things like that on an iPad. So popularity-wise, that's what they would want. The end user would want a lighter device like an iPad, but the reality is something that you got to go with the hazard-rated device. The second thing that I would say that if you're going on a journey, you want optionality, right? So Windows device and an Android device. Android gives you more options to deploy the solutions, but then you'd also have to deal with whether you're deploying a single user mode or what we call kiosk mode. We have an expert here. I'll give it to her because she was the one who was giggling because she has to go out in the field and deal with this. So.
Okay, thanks for that introduction. Yeah, so maybe as a direct reply, if you hand anybody almost anything and just say, hey, hold this, and you walk away, they're not going to want to hold it, no matter what it is, no matter what form factor it is. But what's worked really well for us is taking the approach of, okay, well, we understand that we have end users that have different jobs in the field and have different needs. Some of them are those super users that want a clamshell, that they want something that if it falls down the stairs, it's going to break the stairs. You know, we also want people with something that fits in their pocket or fits on a tool belt. So being able to kind of meet them in the middle and say, even though it's a little more of a burden from an IT standpoint, here is a library of tools, and you can pick what you need that day. That's worked really well for us from an adoption standpoint. And then over time, people tend to gravitate towards certain form factors. And then we can take that information and take it back to our suppliers, to our producers, and say, you know what, this is what would make you the most money to invest in as a classified device. Can we partner there?
Okay, so Mike Moody with BASF. And my comments aren't so much about what BASF's doing right now, but something from an external organization that we do work with, and it's still kind of in process, but it was nicknamed TAME for Technology Adoption and Manufacturing Environments. And the test case, we're looking at APC, but it applies to really everything. And it was initially, the discussion was, what can we do to make these people that don't want to use what we're developing interested to use it? And it didn't take long till the discussion came back to what are we doing wrong and how we package it and present it to them. What do we need to do to step into their shoes, understand, just like what you were saying, what do they really need to do? How do they need to do it? And how does what we deliver to them impact them? And then we can build trust with them. And once we build the trust with them, then they can become active participants to making it work. So it's a pretty interesting discussion. So.
Right. Good afternoon. This is Ahmed Al-Othman. I'm leading the Advanced Process Solutions Division at Aramco. Maybe I'll shed some light on our experience when it comes to upskilling the workforce, which is a major pillar of our digital transformation program. The company availed in-house as well as out-house training programs. So we have multiple e-learning programs that were availed by the company to our engineers where they can actually start learning key digital transformation skills, especially in the area of advanced analytics, AI, as well as UAV robotics, as well as 3D printing. We've also collaborated with multiple universities where we have established hosted programs, and several engineers actually obtained advanced degree in advanced analytics and AI. Actually, I have several engineers in my team already obtained their master's degrees in data analytics. These have really contributed to the adopting the digital transformation. We've also introduced certain KPIs where we measure each organization in terms of citizen development. So we have citizen data scientists, and we track the number of solutions that those engineers have established or developed in-house. And those are highly, being monitored by our management. And I think a key success factor is really the leadership. This is where it makes a difference between one organization to another. We have seen it where certain organizations, if the leadership have the desire to push their teams in developing their skills in the digital transformation, you will see bigger impact compared to other organizations. So that's some of the things that I wanted to share. Maybe.
Yeah, my name is Sash. I'm also working with Ahmed Adman in Saudi Aramco. I have a presentation tomorrow as well as he, so maybe you could join me. But actually, during the presentation, I'll focus on some of the best practices, successes, lessons learned. But honestly, we're focusing on celebrating the success, and where it doesn't work, highlight the pain area and see how technology can help bridge the gap. But there are KPIs like utilization. So are you using the technology? So if it's a handover, takeover, for example, how many times has the technology been able to do that? And for a shift that hasn't done it, at a very basic level, we find out why. So it might be a system problem, it might be a training problem. So we're trying to bridge the gap throughout this entire journey for digital transformation. And this is very basic example for handover, takeover. But if you want to go down to much more deeper cases where we have a scheduling engineer using a scheduling system for blend optimization, or like Ahmed mentioned now, if we have an AI engine built by an engineer, and we deploy that algorithm in the field, and we're seeing if it's really utilized in a predictive or closed loop way. So we're trying to foster good successes where they are, and where it's not working properly. We try and reach out to that team with the help of engineering services and IT to work with that team to bridge the gap. But again, it depends on the leadership. If there's a strong leadership and a strong focus on the KPI, KPI is not used to hit the employee, it's used to build them to get the right behavior. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to repeat the question just to make sure I'm on the right line, and that was, how have you been successful in implementing a bottom-up digital strategy, right?
Right.
Installation. Okay. So Todd Anslinger with Chevron, IoT and automation specialist. What has worked best for me is to take, and you mentioned it, how holding the device, take the device out in the field and let either the operator show them how, and I'm dealing with IoT, so how to install it, push the button, turn on, how to see your data in the cloud, like that. Okay, so the operator and actually his production supervisor, which is over the operators, and say, okay, if you had this casing pressure and it automatically went into the Texas Railroad Commission report every month, do you see value in that? Well, yeah. And then actually getting the production supervisor, why don't you go install one of these in the field? And they do that, and they're like, wow, that was easy. I had my data in 15 minutes. I'm like, yeah, so how much would that cost if you went through automation engineering, which I used to be an automation engineer? How much would that cost? How long would that take you to get that data? into that report? Oh, months and, X amount of dollars. We can't talk numbers, right? So I'm not going to talk numbers. But that is where I've gotten the most success. And then from there, applying, when we used to have the regional DTC stuff, applying Mike Carroll, I don't think Mike Carroll's in here, Mike Carroll's strategy of peer pressure. You take that production supervisor, he's piloted 6 different things, and then he is like, hey, Kendall, why don't you get your production supervisor friends in a meeting and tell them what you're doing? And then they get excited about what he's doing, and you create that peer pressure. That has been golden for me. So if we ever get back to those regional DTC meetings, that's where I've carried that one thing from Mike Carroll, and that's made us go successfully to implement these things from bottom up. And I do want to say, coming to conferences like this, it's about getting that one nugget that could bring huge value. What Tom just said about, because I've made the 2-minute videos that help the engineers communicate to their management on IoT solutions. They're not going to bring it up by themselves because they may not know the technical details. If you give them a video, they can do that. But the thing that I got was put a little survey in there and say, could you benefit, if someone in your business unit benefit from this solution? A simple yes and a name and number, that would get huge value. So that's what I'm taking away from this meeting already. And it's only, 50 minutes in.
So you going home now?
So if I could kind of expand on this conversation just a little bit, and I very much appreciate the comments from Saudi Aramco in terms of their digital upskilling. I would like to maybe pose a question to learn from you all how you're doing digital upskilling. And I come from a perspective of process automation and control background, and when the whole digitalization journey began, many of us kind of looked around and said, well, we are the original digital discipline, right? But in all true humility and a learner mindset, we have a lot to learn. And so we've been working within our company to kind of define what those digital skills above and beyond the competencies that we historically look at, defining those and trying to make those part of a regular curriculum for learning. Interested in other shared experiences or best practices that you've engaged in that?
Anyone?
I will pick somebody. My hand will reach across. You all looking down. You look like you have something to say.
My name is Jan Pingo. I'm from Minnesota. I think there's one thing that we haven't talked about here in digital upskilling is Gen Z and millennials, where you don't need digital upskilling of them, but you need digital upskilling of the people that are managing them and the people that are making decisions around what tools to use and what systems to use. And so I think one of the things that change management is mentioned here further down, but one of the things that's really, really important is for anybody that's at least, especially on the plant floor, to know this digital transformation, how does that impact them, and how do they impact the business? And a lot of times in digital transformation, I hear you talking about the plant managers and the supervisors, they need to be a part, the business needs to be a part of it. No, everybody needs to be a part of it. And they need to understand almost on a daily basis, if I do this now that's changed, how does that impact the business? How do I make an impact in the business? That's just so from a digital upskilling, I think it is us here that needs to be digital upskilled, not the people that we're now hiring, because they already have their Android phone, the iPhone, they know exactly how to use it. You just kind of guide them and they'll know how to use those tools. But we are the ones that need to figure out how do we get those tools in their hands.
Great. Thank you. Anyone? Bueller?
Dale Maloney with Honda. This one I wish I could take credit for, but we just stumbled right into this. Been searching for ways to get people to depend less on Excel and put more into databases. And really just with our Office 365 subscription and gave everybody Power BI, and it's in Teams. All of a sudden, all over the place, people are wanting their data in databases so they can hit it with Power BI, and they're
Nice.
building their own. It's an easy enough tool. Nobody had the strategy that it's going to happen. It's one of those things that just out of the blue, all of a sudden people are using it all over the place. And it was kind of amusing because IT had picked another product that they wanted to be our standard reporting tool, and everybody's telling them where to stick it. And they don't want to use that, and they're going to use Power BI, and they complain if we give anything to them in another tool. So let the people speak.
Anyone?
Let me add a quick comment here. What has worked with me in past, digital upskilling is one of the critical things that you do it consistently. You train your X number of people and realize that suddenly they are no longer in the company because they had better opportunity or something like that. So it has to be a sustainable process, and there is not one tool that fits all. For me personally, what it had worked, the moment I saw some good solution, good tools, technology, some digital native kid jumps out and say, I want to do that. How can I help you? And some are a little bit laid back. So try to look into your organization and see how you could really help them bring on board. Second thing is partnership with a lot of companies out there in the market that they do training for you. They provide trained resources. Partnership with universities, technical colleges, things like that. But again, it's a continuous thing because people will come and go. That's only one thing constant. So this is a continuous effort that I have had good success, but is still continuing to lead through that path. Just wanted to comment. Thank you.
So first of all, I would say, don't tell them you can plug Power BI into Excel, or else you're going to lose all of that. Because we had that same situation, but they all figured that out. And they were like, oh, Excel's great. Put everything in a CSV file. I'll put it in Power BI for you. But it seems like a lot of people are talking toward how do you manage change. And so we have kind of pivoted at my company recently toward the ADKAR model. And that's awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So and that's what we've all been speaking about, really, awareness, right? If you're aware of why the change is happening and how it's meaningfully valuable to you, then you're going to adopt it. And then spending time in the knowledge, right? Like actually explaining to people the technical pieces that are going on beyond them is extremely valuable, it turns out. An operations tech that submits a number and hits submit wants to know where that goes and how that gets to where its final destination is. They're actually very concerned with this to trust, right? It's all trust. And speaking as a millennial by about 4 months, well, I'm on the old end, but I will tell you, if you're not being comprehensive with your training for everybody, we just see that as like you're focusing on us and we're gonna leave. Like, absolutely. I don't know if you've picked up the message yet, but we don't really put up with a work environment that we're not really interested in, or we don't feel like is working for us as much as we're working for it. And so if you're not training everybody equally and treating them kind of all that way, it's really easy for the Gen Z and millennials to pick that out and see that you're either gonna count on them coming to save you, or you're not spending time in this space. And anyone who's not moving digitally, you're not gonna have any new employees in about 10 years. Like, nobody will come work for you because they can see the writing on the wall. You're a dinosaur. And so we all have to avoid that, right? And so I guess that's my comment, is ADKAR is working really well for us.
That's a great comment, actually.
My name is Jane.
My
name is Jane. We are very new at this digital transformation journey. We just started 2 years ago. And I can say one of the failures we had, I don't know whether it's really a failure, is we went out and looked for solutions, what we thought was good for our company. And 50% of what we found was not appreciated. Like the users did not like it. And so we were left trying to convince people to use it. And so this year we have tried to change the strategy and define the problem first. Go out there and talk to the operators. We are a manufacturing company. So we go out there and talk to the operators and everybody else and see what problems they're having, and then we look for the solution. The other way did not work. Like we had some good things we thought were good things, but the guys just didn't care for them. And so you're left there with a software or a platform that you paid for big bucks, and you're getting zero ROI. And it didn't look good on us as a young team. So we are still struggling. So I'm here to this forum to hear what other people are doing, what approaches you're using to drive your digital transformation journey.
I want to build on that. So Mike Tomasco from Pfizer. I lead digital manufacturing. We've been on the journey for about 6 years. I've learned a lot along the way from people in this room in particular and some other forums I go to. But very specifically, I have an experienced design and business adoption team. They were two different teams that I merged together last year. So this is a learning up front, go study what the users need and do, and do user-centric design principles. Don't worry about software or anything like that. Everyone's going to sell you something that may or may not work. It usually doesn't. We also then build most of our own stuff at this point. Not everything, not the big core things, but the advanced analytical applications and things like that, they're all custom built to build the experience that we want people to have in a unified way. In a simplistic way, you always bring out the phone. Everyone knows how to use a phone. Well, if you make your applications simple to use like a phone, you don't even have to teach them how to use stuff. It's just intuitive. So that's something we try to build into the loop at design. But then on the business adoption side, we also embed user statistics and tracking into anything that we're building because it's easier than the ones we buy, right? We own it, we can do this. And we publish it, it's wide open, so anybody can go into the system and see other departments' usage. You know, what parts are they using, what are they not using? That feeds our adoption loop to understand, hey, why is group A using this, but group B is not using it? Well, maybe there's one question we have to ask group B. There's maybe one tiny feature they need that will just get them to adopt that and use that capability. So we're doing a lot of organic research like that that's just over time as you mature, you can start to see new things. But that stuff that they try to sell you, stay away. Know what you're trying to, what problem you're trying to solve before you go buy software, that's for sure.
Hi, my name is Kip Boyd with Dow Chemical, or Dow Inc. now. So in our journey, what's been interesting, and I'll touch on maybe an element of the first on people and workforce and technology innovation, but having a small, I guess, nimble team to kind of focus a lot of these questions to be a sandbox area to test out new concepts. And that's where you're not just looking at the technology, but you're looking at context in the context, like a colleague here, Caitlin, was mentioning. You go in the field, you're testing out the user interface. You're looking for those pain points, the connection to the pain points in terms of what that technology can do, and you're there ready to either pass or fail a concept. And that's of value because you can get that answer pretty quick, pretty nimbly, and that saves your overall company time in terms of letting you move on to the next solution that's maybe more promising versus, you know, try to work through over a year of trying to challengingly introduce a new concept that seems very promising, but to be honest, it was just not the right fit. So that's something that's been interesting for us. Have a focused area or a number of areas where you can have teams working on these, small, nimble, fast-paced, and just get some answers. And over the period of time, hopefully over a year, you've done maybe 30 solutions, but really only 5 or 6 are really promising ones.
Hi, Amanda Aarons, also from Dow. I had the pleasure of working at the Digital Operations Center for 3 years. And I just want to say I'm not an engineer. So in digital upskilling, don't forget, like my background is math, computer science, and data science. So it's just as important to bring people with that foundational background into the manufacturing space so that you can work together with the engineers and really bring both skill sets together.
So could I ask kind of a question to all those folks here, including others who want to talk? But how much of our challenges when we talk about upskilling or getting adoption in the workforce is around the fact that we try to solve with technology? We're not trying to solve the operational problems. And that's what I'm kind of curious about.
Thank you for that lead-in. So Keith DeShire with BASF, and just to kind of summarize on a couple of points, I think that's a lot of the problems that we saw very early on as well, is the fact of, doing this type of technology for the past, I guess, more than a half a decade now, is the fact of you don't go out and find a solution and then go find a problem to solve. So if you want to go from ground up, then you go out there and you get your work boots on and you go out there and you go figure out what are pain points, what are problems that people in the field are having, whether it's maintenance or operations. Once you do that, then you can go out and find a solution. Now, another point, not every solution for the pain point and the problem is a new technology. We don't have to go on the shiny thing tree and go grab a new technology every time we hear a problem. We still live to this day, and you could probably relate to this, where we got control systems that are out there in the plant right now, plus some MES layer systems that we barely use 60% of its capability. Yet, we go out and we buy new shiny things and we bring them in. We have to try to fully utilize the assets that we have. Now, I'm going to disagree with you on one point. I work for a chemical company, a major chemical company. It's been around for years and decades prior to me being alive. It's going to be around for years after I'm gone. And if I have to try to please somebody by allowing them to implement a shiny thing that they discovered, then bye, go work for another company. Because I'm in the business right now of making chemicals, which brings profitability to BASF, is making chemicals, making customer products. And so we're going to do as much as we can. As a matter of fact, I think as a company, we've done a great job of looking at digital solutions. We've done a lot of things wrong by finding solutions and then going out there and trying to force it on the work community. So we're reversing that now. We're trying to go look for pain points and trying to solve pain points, whether it's new technology or older technology. That's what we're going to try to do. And I recommend you do that. And I also recommend we talk about, and I know what this DTC is about, but our focus needs to be, at least for BASF, our focus, and with my German boss sitting right next to me, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Our focus always needs to be what our bottom line is. Our bottom line is making products.
Thank you.
Keith, maybe I can add. I'm Jan, coming from Germany. I have also some. No, but it's quite interesting because we had a long story in the BASF. Now we began also to heal the world from Ludwigshafen. So therefore we said all the tools which are developed needs to be developed in Ludwigshafen, and then we spread it out to the world, and they have to eat it. Yeah. And then I said, guys. Also, I worked at that time in a smaller site in Germany, and I said, guys, I don't need that tool because I have 100 functions. I need only just 3 functions. Yeah? And then I went out to the shop floor and asked my people, what do you need? And then I gave them a programmer, I gave them the money, and I gave them the time, and I gave them the freedom to develop their own app. Yeah? And they did it, yeah? And it's still running. So therefore, it shows if they know what they need, and if they have the freedom to develop, they use it. They have the skills to do that. Yeah? So if we want to be attractive, you have to show that to the others that can work. The other thing is a watch out. In the last years, I worked as a site manager in Poland for a catalyst plant in automotive, and we had a fully automated, vertical integrated plant there. All data is available everywhere. You need that, but it was not running. So therefore, we didn't perform. Yeah. So, and this was for me the watch out that we need really to look what kind of processes needs to be established
solid-wise, and then looking which tools are fitting also to the process. And I would say surprisingly, we came also up in the shop floor management with a normal whiteboard to maintain the KPIs on the whiteboard, that the people really understand what the KPIs are. And then it worked also to improve the process there. So therefore, yes, you can use a lot of digital tools, but also be aware of that the process are running in the right way, and it's also paying back. Yeah? So what is really needed and what is needed to drive the business.
I love the fact that you said we are here to make product. Ben and I were actually at a site visit to a customer, not one of our customers, but like a peer in the industry. And I love the first line of their mission statement is like, we are here to make money for our shareholders and you know, for the company and our shareholders. And we do that through making our product, right? That's what we are all about. But for some reason, it often seems like we invest a lot in the other areas first. Like, I mean, you have really nice, shiny headquarter buildings and really, they've been renovated every few years. And then you go out to your plants and the ceiling, the roof's leaking, or, you know, if they have any roof at all, you know. So it's pretty amazing that sometimes you have to remind these folks that we are here to make product, and how are we going to do it better?
Great discussions. Not sure how we are doing on the timing. I remember 2018, I was in Hannover Messe for in a conference. My company, previous company at that time, used to say, go digital or go home. In Hannover Messe, we learned you know, another slogan, go digital or go dead. Well, pandemic hit. And every company that were against digital or not aware about digital, everybody got into digital space one way or the other way. Pandemic pushed us maybe a decade or two ahead. So every company has implemented in some form digital technology or expedited. So that leads us to next is, how are we managing with the digital change management, the mindset of our people on the floor as well as people at the top level? Wonder what you guys are doing and thinking. We had some discussions around that, but wanted to get some thoughts there.
How about some of our new participants?
Hey guys, I'm David Cho from Georgia Pacific. I lead the APC team there, and just wanted to what I wanted to share with you guys, I think expands on what the gentleman from BASF shared. It's really about the workflow, and the guys on site, they're the ones tied with the process. They're the experts of what the problem statements are and the pain points they face on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and a very specific challenge that we've had going into the pandemic was our turnover rate. Right, our owners of all of the efforts and all of the branches of our digital transformation, our key focus was for that ownership to be really given to the local sites, the engineers there, at all of our plants. And the challenge that we face with such of these turnovers is really having a tough time sustaining and expanding on that efforts that really coming from the development down, we weren't able to drive any of the development into implementation due to that turnover rate. And we were forced to get creative, and I think we took a very radical and creative change that some of the engineers, some of the groups at the plants no longer reported to the plants, and we actually, on a very large scale, restructured the reporting structure to have, for example, the process control team as an entire company report to the corporate controls divisions. And it, at the time, was a very radical change, and a lot of skeptic perspectives coming towards us and a lot of feedback that this is a route to failure. But in a position where we were forced to be creative, I think having the controls engineers report to us just created a culture of having the right priorities come from the plants. They're not doing firefighting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the requests for their support to the plants were very specific and a lot more focused. And all of that availability now that they have was for them to have ownership of all of these digital transformation efforts. So that's something that we had to take a radical turn going into the pandemic for us, and has worked great so far. And us being based in Atlanta gives them the career path to perhaps go into different areas of the country or even move to Atlanta and perhaps take a travel role. And that flexibility also really helped close the gap with the turnover rate throughout the pandemic. So just wanted to kind of share that experience with us. It's not so much specifically on what we're doing a digital transformation on, but kind of the creative changes we had to tackle on to sustain the work.
I don't see any hands, but maybe I can kind of help nudge you a little bit. How are things, we sort of came out of the pandemic and now we're going into this economic uncertainty. So how are you going to use what you learned during the pandemic to operate better and more efficiently during this time of economic uncertainty? Nudge, nudge, nudge. I was just literally about to hand the mic to somebody.
Hello, my name is Steel. I work on Petrobras. I remember when the pandemic started in Brazil, we thought we were working from home for 1 week, and we stayed more than 1 year. So we had to learn a lot of things. Before the pandemic, we used it to make meetings together. We started to make meetings using softwares, and then we learned to do the factory acceptance test using the Microsoft Teams, for example, or the technology, to make the test remotely, to meet people remotely, and do all the things we did in the project, not together, but use the technology. After that, we saw that we could use the technology, but now we see that to be together or to be face-to-face is good also. And now we started some other process. We can use the technology, but we encourage the people to stay together, to be face-to-face, because it's very better than we started or we learned in the pandemic.
Yeah, I want to follow on that. We have all going through that pandemic, everybody moved digitally. We all started attending all our meetings virtually. And we, at my company, noticed a pretty significant degradation of communication. Like almost all communication is not through the words that you're saying, but on a screen, that's almost the only thing that comes across sometimes, especially if you turn off your video, which is now at your whim, right? I can't turn off my video right now. You're gonna see how I act, and if I look angry, there's no hiding that. And so we've lost a lot in that, right? We deployed a couple things through that time when really we couldn't manage how people were feeling about the tool, right? They just say yes, or they give you a thumbs up on Teams, and you're like, oh, I guess you like it. Or even worse, they don't talk at all, right? It's just silence is adoption all of a sudden. And so we're moving back to a lot more deliberate effort to see people in person, because not only are you losing trust, but you lose so much more communication. And so coming into this time when now costs are going to be the thing that keep you on the screen all the time, we're trying to balance that and driving for particular days during the week when we make an effort to do everything in person those days. Even if case in point would be one of the more frustrating meetings I attended last year was a meeting that took place every week with all the people on my floor in my building, and nobody ever saw anybody. We all just attended from our computer. And so this year we put an end to that. You don't get to attend the meeting. We actually took the Teams invite away. So you can't be in the meeting without going to the meeting, kind of like this. And it's changed that for the better in a lot of ways. So I really like what you're speaking to there.
Hi, I'm Chris Sepula from Shell. So I wanted to jump on this train too. So before the pandemic, we were in the discipline engineering training space already going virtual, right? Taking away face-to-face training opportunities in order to save money. And then when the pandemic came along, that was totally supercharged, right? So everything became virtual, even very detail-oriented discipline engineering training. And we come to the realization collectively that we were missing some critical elements of detailed technical training that weren't coming across properly in virtual setting. And we're sort of adjusting back the other way and saying, let's think about things where it makes sense to bring people back together for training. And then, interestingly, if you look into the training world and you look into the leadership world, the leaders are all quite happy to be back together, and so we have to give them the message, that you guys feel good about all being back together. Sometimes people taking training classes also feel good about being together and learning stuff from their technical mentors.
There's one experience also from my side, because we pushed more to use the HoloLens. I don't know if you know what it is. It's a goggle what you're using, I would say, to seek and go on the shop floor. And there were a lot of obstacles and resistance before the COVID pandemic. And then due to travel bans and restrictions, I would say, and also we had the need to introduce new technologies, and our headquarters was in Hanover and we were sitting in Poland. So we had to use it. Yeah? So, and it went quite well. So therefore we applied. They had need really to see how the robots are running in the system, and the producing and the production is running end to end. And I think at the end it's established now as a tool what we are using on a normal base. So, and also avoiding such travel. So therefore we could also reduce some costs there. So, and we use that also not even in the collaboration with the headquarters, but also with the other sites globally. So therefore this was a really good one, and COVID gave us really a push to that. Now the HoloLens is just the goggle. So we have a production line where we have a lot of robots. It's like a production of catalysts for cars, so heavy and light duty. And they need really to say how they use the substrate and how they immerse into the slurry. So therefore they need really to see how this robot is acting, and also how the slurry is looking like, and how this works together. So they need really to look to see the data from, I would say, from the HMI that are transferred. It's not enough. They need really to see the process, how it runs, how the slurry looks like, and then. So it is like a personal experience that you need to run that proper, especially with new technologies.
This will be the last one. We're up.
All right. Hopefully it'll be good enough to be last. But anyway, I was going to say that, just like Keith is sitting next to his boss, I'm sitting next to my boss. So, but I think some of the things that came, they're going to probably stay around, because we found out that while some things it's very beneficial to do in person, we found that there's some things that's actually easier to do remotely. The days of sitting behind somebody and them showing you something on their screen, that's gone. Why do that? Even if you're sitting next to each other, we'll kick off a Teams meeting to share a document, things like that. And in the remote and virtual FATs, and especially software-wise, but we've even done some with cameras to do them, remotely, or maybe just send one person or so during the pandemic, or to save money. So those are pretty good things. But in the end, we're talking about getting people together. And during the pandemic, it was difficult, but our group is spread out between Louisiana, Texas, Michigan, and other places. So, something we did, and even this past summer when the pandemic was pretty much over, but a project, we probably met together on Teams, about 5 of us every morning for about 6 weeks, because of an urgent project that was going on. And some days we had very little to discuss about the project, but we kept the meeting open every day, and it was just a ad lib free talk about whatever for half the time. And it was actually very good and constructive at just keeping, even though we weren't always using the video, just keeping dialogue that was just friendly, even just talking about, the young people that haven't seen things like My Cousin Vinny. We just throw out some lines and say, if you don't know what that is, we've got some required movie watching for you. And then they shot back with required movies for us to watch. So anyway, so it was really good at building bonds from, people that were a couple years into their career up to 30. So anyway.
Thank you. Well, I want to give all of you a hand for participating. Thank you very much. Panelists, thank you very much.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
Can we give Jane a round of applause for all her years of service here?
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
We're sad to see you go.
All right, so
To
we
the
had
dark
a
side.
bunch of topics, as you saw on there. We only went through 2, but it's this type of dialogue that we want to encourage in the DTC community, because this is how you learn. It's how you learn what works, what doesn't work, how do I apply that? The other thing I want to encourage you is to take note of who's in here and talk to them afterwards. Okay, you don't want to just learn now. The whole forum is about you learning from other folks in your same position. Okay.